Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. Hello and good morning and welcome to Big 10 Plus 4. We bring you college sports with a Midwest perspective. We are blue collar and blue blood. That young gentleman on the other side of the screen, Tony Hollinsworth, joining me, Sam Sprunger, to talk some Big 10 sports. Tony, how are we?
I'm doing great. It's Friday, the weekend. Can't wait for it. Be able to catch up on sleep. It will be fantastic.
You know, they did a study that you actually don't ever catch up on sleep. You know that, right? That's a fallacy.
Look, sir, you can leave me and my sleep apnea happiness by myself.
I didn't say you can't always try to sleep as much as possible. You just technically never catch up on it.
I know. I try, though.
It's a losing battle.
My sleep apnea says, no, sir.
Yeah. Our other co-host, Dalton Shetler, out. He is during basketball season, the tail end of football season, and during basketball season is a pretty busy guy. So asking him for 2 days is an awful lot. So we're lucky enough to have him 1 day a week, and then as much as possible. So he does have an appearance today, Tony.
Yes, he does.
That's always a fun thing, right?
It is. I'm still wondering how Dalton gets lucky enough to get this whole 1 day work week. I'm okay with 2. Just want to know how you get to the 1 day work week.
Well, yeah, it's who you know.
It's all about them connections.
It's who you know. So, hey, it's kind of a one of those slow weeks when it comes to the events that are actually taking place in the world of college sports. We're getting basketball games. The football bowl schedule is played out or is set.
Mm-hmm.
We all know where everybody's going. Your team of rooting interest, if they're bowling, they know where they're headed.
Yep.
The CFP playoffs, those semifinal games, those are going to be a bear to break down, because honestly, I've looked at them a couple of times just kind of to preliminarily kind of wrap my head around things, and it doesn't. It's a lot to take in. All 4 of those teams, without getting in depth, I could see them winning 1 or 2 games. Honestly, that's not me just going to make it seem like that big. Honestly, I could see any of these teams winning the title.
Really? The only one to me,
I didn't say all of them were likely in my head. I just said I could see it.
The only one I can't see is honestly TCU, and it's really no shot at them. It's just quarterback wise, I think Max Duggan. Oh yeah, Max Duggan could do it, no problem. It's the rest of the team that will hurt him is the problem.
I just keep seeing them keeping on just winning, in those high pressure situations that at least battle tests them enough that's not going to scare them necessarily into a loss. They're not going to lose a game because they have to perform in a clutch situation necessarily.
Right. And
that's why I could see them keeping games close and then pulling it out at the end because of that.
See, that's my thing is I worry about them being able to keep it close. Offensively, again, they're fine because they have Max. Defensively is where I'm like, a little bit of a question mark. And especially in it, and really for them, I think this is where, and again, I'll try not to get too in depth into it. It's where I feel like they're kind of at a mismatch. If you face Michigan, you have to face a run game. If you do Ohio State, you have a passing attack. If you have Georgia, you have to worry about an offense and a defense. So it's like, that's why to me, out of those 4, to me, TCU is the weakest.
I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't disagree at all. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is I'm not disagreeing that TCU isn't necessarily probably number 4 on my list of power rankings, but I could see a scenario that would play out to where, pretty much any of these 4 teams could put together a 2-game streak of just dominating enough to win the title. But
And that's the best part though, because it's college football, and at the end of the day, TCU could go on, they could beat Michigan, then they could beat whoever wins out of Georgia and Ohio State, and we could be sitting here saying, wow, TCU are national champions.
Horned Frogs, baby. Good thing we didn't drop them out for Alabama.
Although, did you know, fun fact for everybody that's listening,
They squirt blood out their eyeballs.
well, yes. But the quote whole horned frog that they're trying to say that it's based off of is actually the horny toad from, I think it's Brazil. And
like the mascot looking portion of the okay.
I think the actual toad, like the actual horny toad or whatever that they're trying to copy out of Texas, doesn't look like that at all. It actually looks like the Hypno Toad from Futurama. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen in the games, they have Hypno Toad, and I'm like, okay, I could kind of become a TCU fan just because I'd want to be able to have Hypno Toad.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, so, I mean, it's all relative. I mean, it all gets played on the field. So, I mean, it's one of those that we can sit here and talk and talk and talk, and all of us, we may be right at some point, we may be wrong every other point, or whatever. But honestly, that, like you said, that's why they play that on the field, and college football is so great. And this is such just a screwy, weird season that you could honestly see I mean, think about this, Tony. We are literally a 2-point conversion away from Alabama playing in this semifinal game.
Mm-hmm. And you know who took care of that? The
LSU, yes,
LSU.
But my point is literally, if he's a foot this way, on the further back downfield, he doesn't make it in. Like, he didn't make it in by a ton. Like, literally that much makes it a 1-point Bama win, and they're
and honestly, what kind of surprised me too and I don't want to make it a full LSU or SEC show by no means. The fact that to get to that point, Jaden Daniels did a quarterback run and runs it into the end zone untouched. And I'm like, wait, like I just didn't expect it, because I didn't really see a lot of Jaden Daniels, because I don't get to see a lot of I don't know about you, I don't get to see a whole lot of Arizona State games. So it's like I didn't really have anything to go off of, because I don't get to see that a lot. And the fact that he's able to run, and it's like I'm watching him run in slow motion, because he's not one of those speedsters, but he can run. And I'm like, how are you guys missing him? But yeah, I mean, and I know we talked about it last week about whether or not we felt that Alabama deserves it or not. And, like you said, we could talk about that for hours. But yeah, just the fact that, like you said, this much. And honestly, at one point when I was watching it, I go, I don't know if they'll count that. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they give Alabama a lot of ridiculously bad calls that they're like, well, the player's foot was out of bounds, but Alabama touchdown. Like,
yeah.
What?
So this segue, this is a good segue, believe it or not, Tony, to the next portion of this first quarter that I wanted to talk about. Is we were talking about LSU and Alabama. LSU's bowl opponent is the Purdue Boilermakers. They just lost their head coach. They lost in the Big Ten championship game to Michigan, much like we thought it would play out, but maybe just a little bit further in score than we thought it would. But the Boilermakers lose in the Big Ten championship game, and then the next day, maybe the day after, it might have been Monday when they officially started making it one of those that they're in negotiations or whatever. But I did hear something about it Sunday that it could be happening relatively quickly. But Jeff Brohm goes to Louisville. Louisville, Kentucky, that city just on the south part of the Ohio River on the Indiana Kentucky border. Louisville, the Cardinals. So he played at Louisville. So I mean, it's one of those that I saw a question posed about, and they were talking about the football program, and is Purdue a destination or a stepping stone? And here's honestly, I don't know, because Purdue's never been really established enough to where their coach could develop and go higher. Because you think about it, in my lifetime, and I'm 43 years old, that I can remember, it's Jim Coletto. He didn't pan out very well. Then Joe Tiller.
Mm-hmm.
And there's your high water mark for Purdue football right there. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad high water mark at all.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But then you go to Danny Hope, who, no. Daryl Hazel, no. And Jeff Brohm. And Jeff Brohm did a very, very good job. But I honestly don't know that I see Louisville as being a step up. It's more of a lateral move. And if it wasn't going home, I don't know that Jeff Brohm leaves.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, that's kind of how I feel with really Louisville and Purdue both. Like they're lateral moves. And I say that because you look at the conferences that they're in. Like,
well, if it's a MAC school, coach, it could be considered a step up. Both of those would be considered a step up.
100%.
But at the Power Five, kind of where they've been historically and kind of where they're at now, that's not a move up in my thought.
Well, to me, like you said, if you're coming from a group 5 to them, yes, it's definitely a step up.
Right.
But even then, I consider it kind of really, for me, for a group 5 to a power 5, I almost consider it like a half step. And I say that because you look at where you're going into. Like if you go to Purdue as the head coach, even so let's say hypothetically we get rid of the divisions, right? Who are your big boys that you're going to have to contend with that you already know are going to be locked in as potential, conference favorites? Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, maybe Michigan State, maybe Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa, one of them. For Louisville, I mean, you look at it, who's the big dog favorite throughout the ACC? Clemson.
But then you have Florida State, Miami, who all have historically been
great franchises,
great schools in the past, won national titles. Wake Forest hasn't been horrible recently. North Carolina's been pretty decent. North Carolina State's been okay.
Yeah,
in the past,
Pitt won the championship last year with Kenny Pickett.
But at no point are you saying, and don't misconstrue this, Louisville's been good in the ACC,
yes.
But about as regular as Purdue's good in the Big Ten.
Right. And that's why I say that to me, it's hard, because when you look at schools like that, when you look at the Clemsons, the Ohio States, the Michigan, that's a tough test to climb. And I'm not saying I expect you to, be competing for like your conference championship, because that's a lot to ask in your short tenure, and to at least be competitive. So I think you can be competitive, but I also think you are slightly handicapped, because I mean, you think about the schools that are also close to, Louisville and close to Purdue. Like if you're from Indiana and you want to go to a top football program, you're probably going to go to Notre Dame. You might even go up north to one of the Michigan schools. You might go east to Ohio.
Go to Ohio State, yeah.
Like, and same with Kentucky. You might go to one of those other places. You might go south to Tennessee. Like, so to me, it is hard to be able to have the success that they've had. Now, like you said, Louisville's been good. They were able to have Lamar Jackson for a couple of years at that point and do wonders. I mean, you look at Purdue this year; they went to the conference championship at least. So I don't think it's bad, but I do think for some of these coaches, it's a tough move. And some of these schools willing to? Sorry,
no, that's right. Go ahead.
Are some of these schools willing to honestly kind of wait it out? Because I mean, it takes a lot to be able to not only build your program, but to be able to get players where you want to get them. And can you potentially get some hidden gems? And now with the transfer portal, it is a good thing, but some of these kids might be like, maybe I can go somewhere else and I can be better. Maybe I can go farther. Who knows?
Here's the reason why I consider it being kind of a definitely a lateral move, especially from Purdue to Louisville, and I think that it's basically like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, or of our talk about this. If it's a program that's not Louisville but is still the same sort of move, like I consider this move, I don't think Jeff Brom's making that move. If Syracuse was looking and asked, no, he's not leaving to go to Syracuse.
No.
But look at what Purdue has been. They were not good when Jeff Brohm showed up.
Yep.
They've been better and they've gotten good, but he hasn't been in contention for titles.
No.
Up until this year. This was his first attempt at a Big Ten championship, and he was here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's not me at all saying I did not appreciate what Jeff Brohm did at Purdue. Not at all. I liked him a lot. I liked that he was able to say no to Louisville the first time that they came knocking, and because he wanted to do something, and he did some stuff, but he's not that, oh my gosh, he's that can't miss, and Louisville had to pry him.
Yes.
Because and or outbid other schools. Now that's not to say Jeff Brohm wouldn't have given them maybe a discount because that's where home is for his college days and things like that. But my point is that tells me it was weighing a lot. Louisville isn't the dumpster fire that some programs are, so therefore they're not as horrible as a team in dire strait. I don't know that they were going to get rid of their coach had he not left for Cincinnati.
There was reports that he was maybe potentially on the hot seat, but it wasn't anything like, oh, hey, you lose another game and you get fired. But I mean, to be fair, we didn't think Paul Chryst was on the hot seat either.
Well, for sure. And it's all a moot point because he did leave and Jeff Brohm left for Louisville. But I guess my biggest thing is I don't damn him for wanting to go home, and if that's one of the reasons. I would hate to think that and I haven't seen anything that would say anything different, that he would say that he had accomplished all that he could accomplish at Purdue, because I think that is negotiable, because Purdue has been and can go to the Rose Bowl. To me, if they're not playing for a CFP, a Rose Bowl appearance would be a gleaming success for a team like Purdue.
Yeah. And I mean, plus, like I said, you got to think how difficult do you think it would be to replace somebody like Aiden O'Connell? Because, he's done, Charlie Jones is potentially done. So it's, that's hard talent to replace. And especially when, again, you're already competing in a tough division. Like you're competing now, keep in mind, the West is open, but you're still going to have to deal with Wisconsin. You still have to deal with Iowa.
Well, and your schedule next year has Ohio State, Michigan State on it. Yeah. So,
and I mean, don't
just got harder just with the scheduling itself.
Yeah. And you look at Iowa. Iowa's just decided we're going to retool our entire offense. Like they got, Cade McNamara. They got the tight end for one of the tight ends for Michigan too, I believe.
As of the time that we've recorded, Graham Mertz is not committed anywhere, correct? Because we haven't talked about that at all. It was Graham Mertz. He left.
Yeah, he announced that he's entering the portal. DJ Uyunglele. Now
DJU's there, but the reason why I bring up Mertz is that wouldn't be, and I guess it depends on the coach. And I have seen Jim Leonard's name being flashed for Purdue as a potential candidate. I'm not saying that he's a front runner. I have my own thoughts on that actually I'm going to talk about on the tail end. But I've seen his name. Graham Mertz wouldn't be a horrible one. To go into the Purdue system. I mean, granted, the Purdue system is no longer the one I'm used to necessarily because we don't know who's coming in. Yeah. And but like some of these players, and that's why I think Purdue will act relatively quickly. I think before we hit the the jolly old man coming down the chimneys, Purdue will either have a coach or at least have down to their last two or whatever. I would think being 16 days out, they would have a coach by then.
Yeah, I would think so. Or they'll at least have an interim coach, and then they'll figure it out during the technically the off season.
Yeah. I was going to say that's the biggest question right now is, who's Purdue going to have coach them in their bowl game? And we mentioned that who they're playing, but you know what? let's go to the second quarter and talk about the whole conference and their bowl
Sweet.
games. All right, little long on that first quarter, but better than what I thought. I honestly, I have a goal time. We normally blow that goal time away by about twice as long as what it should have been.
Yeah, like
We're
15,
not
30
too
minutes.
much. We're not too much over this time. So, I wanted to talk about just like the Big Ten sent 10 or is sending 10 teams to bowl games. That to me, excuse me. I know Dalton talked about it last week in his headlines that there are so many stinking bowl games that basically you get to 6 wins and yay, you got bowl eligible. Whereas actually this year there's going to be some 5 and 7 teams. Next year there very well could be more 5 and 17. There's just so many bowl games out there that they can't fill them unless they take teams that have only won 5 games. But I do not believe any of our Big Ten teams are 5 and 7.
No,
in their bowl games though.
nope. The lowest one is Wisconsin. They are 6-6,
Yeah.
playing Oklahoma State at the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes.
And we were also talking. Dalton talked about like he hates that like in a random, before the 15th of December type, Tuesday after or evening, there's a random 2 teams that you've hardly ever heard of playing football games. We're looking at the Big Ten schedule and their bowl games. The first bowl game for a Big Ten team is that Wisconsin Oklahoma State game on December 27th, not until after Christmas.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on which matchups they get or which bowl games they were to get a bid with that would determine kind of, what date they play. But it's always been my impression the later in bowl season you play, the better season you had.
Yeah. And
that's not to say that we didn't have some teams struggle
mm-hmm.
in the Big Ten, but at least that says they had a pretty decent season.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, that is true because you look at, with the exception of obviously the 31st when the playoffs actually start
Right.
with Michigan and Ohio State, January 2nd, Illinois plays Mississippi State at the ReliaQuest Bowl at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. LSU plays Purdue at the Citrus Bowl.
Just down I-10.
And then probably the best matchup, you have Penn State versus Utah at the Rose Bowl.
Granddaddy of them all, Pasadena, California.
So I mean, I do agree, and I know we didn't really get to mention this much because of time before. I know they had mentioned that they potentially wanted to move bowl games to the beginning of the season because obviously, as we know as college fans, and sometimes they have to notice it a little bit, you lose a lot of star power. A lot of these guys are like either they're declaring for the draft, or they're like, you know what, I'm going to sit out because I'm either preparing for next year or I'm getting ready for the draft. And I know I had pitched it to you and Dalton. What if they do some of these like during the season, like during some of these big matchups, like just make it a random bowl? Like they already because I watched like the championship games and how it's like all sponsored by Dr. Pepper. Like you hear Dr. Pepper like constantly. They could do the exact same thing for a lot of these home games. They could even, and I know you had mentioned keeping them at home. Don't even do it at a neutral site. Keep them at the home stadiums because you can make so much more money. I mean, think about it. Look at, let's say Michigan versus Michigan State. You could, Rocket Mortgage. You could have a Rocket Mortgage Bowl. Boom, that gets you big money right there. It's already in Michigan. It's a big matchup, and you can be flexible with it too. And it keeps your good quality players. People are going to be tuned into it. People are going to watch it, and you don't have to. And I get it. They're like, oh well, people are going to watch football because it's on there. They're going to do like how they normally do college football. If my team is playing, I'm going to watch. If not, I don't care. I don't care that, this team and this team is playing in the Charmin toilet paper bowl. Like they'd probably never do that, but for obvious reasons. But still, like that, nobody's going to watch that. Nobody's going to watch it.
I have a completely off the wall idea that I think would be enormously awesome. I really honestly do. So we kind of talked about Dalton throughout the whole let's do four divisions.
Yep.
4 team pods. Once the Big Ten gets USC and UCLA, make it four 4-team pods. Let's eliminate one of their pre-schedule or their preseason, their beginning of their season cupcake cakes, right? Let's just cancel that.
Game?
Let's just cancel that. Okay, so they only schedule 2, I think, then, and then they play the or 3, and they play 8
conference
games. So that would leave 11 games. The 3 they scheduled, and then their conference. That would leave them all with 1 game. Every team in the conference with 1 game. Well, your top seeds in each of the divisions go and play each other to figure out the championship or the champion of the Big Ten, right? The rest, the other 10 teams, they just match up. They get drawn randomly, and don't tell me you can't. You will have an idea of who will be hosting games. And maybe that's the way you do it. The top 5 remaining teams of those will host the bottom 5, and they just play a game. That way they've got an extra game to play, that 12th game on their schedule. And don't tell me, oh, well, we already played Rutgers. We'll beat them then. Beat them again, and it will go as two wins. That one won't count as a conference game, but it will count as a win. And it allows you to have another one more. And you play those 14, those pod winners, you're adding one more game to it. Well, guess what? That's the same thing we do right now. They'll still only play 13 games. We have solved the Big Ten's problems.
Yeah, really.
I think we need to get Dalton on the horn with all the people that he knows, and get hold of Kevin Warren and say, this is what needs to happen. Let's make this work.
Hey, we just got to make sure that we copyright and trademark this episode. That way they're like, well, we came up. No.
I need to write this down. That way I can copyright it. That way we get the
credit.
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars that come our way when they decide that's what they want to do.
Right.
So we got Maryland and NC State. That's going to be a decent game. I think Minnesota and Syracuse in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl.
And did you see where it's at? It's at Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium,
the Bronx.
In the Bronx. That is on the 29th of December. 30th is when Maryland and NC State play. You mentioned Ohio State and Georgia, and then TCU and Michigan playing on the 31st. But guess what? Guess which team is honored enough to play on the exact same day as the 2 semifinal games to the college football playoff?
I'm going to call them Iowa because they don't have an O for their offense. I'm just going to call them Iowa.
Yes, the Hawkeyes, Iowa Hawkeyes, and the Kentucky Wildcats will play in the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl, also on the 31st. They're playing at noon. That way the other 2 games can be standalone, obviously, to where they have the captive audience.
You mean to tell me that you're not excited to watch the random Kentucky quarterback that puts mayonnaise in his coffee, and
which is the grossest thing, but I love both, but I don't want them combined.
And then the team that has 0 offense, you don't want to watch them play for 4 hours. You don't want to watch them go into overtime
without any analysis, looking at who plays who in these bowl games, minus the semifinals, because we'll talk about those. Of the remaining, 8 teams that play, 8 games, which matchup intrigues you the most?
Honestly, to me, it's Penn State versus Utah. I feel like that is the absolute.
That's number 8, number 11 Penn State against number 8 Utah. So it's a high matchup. It's the Rose Bowl. Like it's a New Year's 6, so the Big Ten has 3 teams in the New Year's 6 games.
Well, and you think about it too. This is a Penn State team that the only 2 losses they had were to Michigan and Ohio State. Other than that, they performed extremely well every other game that they played in. This is a team that honestly, if you had to like give them a rival comparison for like the Pac-12, I would say it's Utah. Because
Yeah.
Utah is one of those they do kind of lose some big games, but it's not like they lose in a terrible fashion. They just lose on like one of those last plays of the game. And look at Utah, back-to-back conference champions.
Back-to-back
And
Rose Bowls.
they've beat USC. I think they're like what 3-0 versus USC
In the
or
past
like
2 years.
Yeah, the past 2 years.
3-0 because they didn't play USC in the Big 12 or Pac-12 championship last year,
Yeah.
did they?
No, it was I think Oregon and Utah last year. I think
might have been UCLA.
Maybe because I know Oregon.
I'm
had
not
like
a Pac.
streak
This
going.
isn't Pac-12 +4.
True. That's why they're the +4. But no, I mean, to me, that's the most interesting one. Utah has a good defense. I mean, they kind of do remind me a little bit of TCU as well. They're not a team that's going to like overwhelmingly dominate you, but they are going to find ways to win. They're going to find ways to move the ball. And, we saw it against USC. I mean, they got they got blown out a little bit in the first quarter, but then after that, the Utes were like, no, hold my sparkling water because it's Utah. It's a dry state.
Utes guys hold my beer.
No, they can't have beer. It's Utah.
They can hold it. They just can't drink it.
They can't hold it. It's bad.
Okay, whatever.
Sparkling water.
No, I agree. That's probably the most intriguing because, well, let's say it this way. It depends. We also don't know rosters yet either. So it may become one of those where each team has 4 people decide they're not playing and they're all really pivotal players that it kind of takes away from the game. But Ohio State had a bunch that sat out last year, and that Rose Bowl with Utah was still one whale of a game. So I think it has. I don't know. I hope that doesn't dull Utah's outlook on what the Rose Bowl is, because we were here last year. It's still a big deal to go to the Rose Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And so hope I see that being a good game. I have obviously a special interest in watching Purdue LSU play.
I mean, I do too.
I hope that most of those players decide they're going to play and play just for their pride. That hopefully that happens. So, I'm looking forward to this bowl season. I am totally on board with Dalton. I think there are even some of these that I won't pay. I'm not paying too much attention to the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. I'm not going to pay much attention to it.
No.
I don't want to consider something a waste of my time. I think that might be. And you know what? I will reevaluate and treat Iowa with the same respect that I normally do at the beginning of every season. They just lost all of it very quickly this year for me.
Yes.
But it should be an exciting Big Ten bowl season. I'm not too hung up on win-loss records. I just like seeing those teams compete against those teams that you don't normally see them play. The 2 semifinals, absolutely. I have some interest in how those play out. I didn't say I was rooting for the Big Ten teams that are involved, but I have rooting interest in the aspect of I care and want to see how those play out. But all in all, this is going to be a pretty good Big Ten bowl season.
Yeah. Now, I do have to ask, even though it's not necessarily Big Ten related, but I thought it was funny, and I'm trying to look and see if it's true or not. Did you hear about it's truly going to be an Orange Bowl?
Yes.
Because it's Clemson versus Tennessee, orange and orange in the Orange Bowl.
What I was thinking was, excuse me, they have designated home and away teams.
Yeah.
But since they're both orange based, I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of haggling back and forth with one another. Okay, Clemson, you get the orange helmets. Tennessee, you get the orange jerseys. Then you guys go crazy with whatever pants or whatever, so they both get to don their orange, what they're known for, that strong color, but yet they're still decipherable between one another. Could you imagine if Tennessee came out in their orange, their reverse helmets where they were orange and white striped?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I haven't been able to find anything that proves it. I just heard, and somebody probably made it up, but I think it still would be funny that supposedly there was a bet between the two teams that whoever loses doesn't get to wear orange for like the whole entire season next season. And I'm like, that
Well,
would be
like
awesome.
like if that were to happen to where Tennessee beat them, at least. Well, I guess Tennessee's got an alternate black jersey that they could wear.
They have a smoky gray and they have a black. Clemson,
but then
has
Clemson has
weird
the purple
blue or purple.
It's purple. It's purple.
Is it purple?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's purple.
I'm colorblind, so I'm going to take your word for it.
Yeah, it could be bright brown.
Probably. I mean, I only know, to me, the only purple and Tigers that matter are LSU. It's the only purple Tigers that matter.
You and I are going to be button heads there on January 2nd, though.
Just for January 6th. Then we're good. After
Second.
Sorry, January 2nd.
All right. Well, let's hit up the half, and we got a game on the other side. So let's hit up the half. You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
I'm Richie, a.k.a. Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, a.k.a. Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros Podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Once upon a time.
Boring.
It was the best of times. It was the worst.
You got that right.
What's your problem?
We want new stories.
Hi, it's Frankie.
And Garrett. And we host the Ever Trending Story, a weekly podcast where we bring to life a fictional story created by our own minds and some of the hottest, craziest trends from the internet.
Find us wherever you download podcasts, and be sure to join the fun on social media at EverTrendingPod.
Chris Collins for sliding.
All right. We are back from halftime. Tony was sliding into his seat right as the whistle's going off. So good job on that one, Tony.
Had to pull a Chris Collinsworth. Now here's a guy that can slide into.
Guy. So I've got a game for you, and it piggybacks off of the bowl games in which we just talked about.
Okay.
So if you have these pulled up, close the window.
Okay.
Because I am quizzing you.
Oh boy.
Which is the most expensive ticket?
Most expensive.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm eliminating 3 games.
Okay.
They're the New Year's 6 and the semifinals. So that's the Penn State Utah game, the Ohio State Georgia game, and the TCU Michigan game. Those are all north of $200 a piece. You have $100 to buy a ticket.
Okay.
It will get you in any of the other ones. I'm going to give you 2 sets, and I want you to tell me which one is the least expensive and which one is the most expensive. Okay. So the first set we have Mississippi State at Illinois, the Real Quest Bowl at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida on January 2nd. Okay. That's the first game that I've got in this group of 4.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, there will be one game, and I think you'll know which one I'm going to eliminate that we won't talk about. So it'll be 2 groups of 3.
Okay.
The next one, excuse me, LSU and Purdue at the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, also on January 2nd, Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Okay. That's the first 2. The third one, Maryland and NC State in the Duke's Mayo Bowl in the Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. So you have the Real Quest Bowl in Tampa, the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, and the Duke's Mayo Bowl in North Carolina. Of those 3, which is the least expensive game to go?
Least expensive.
Excuse me.
So you said Maryland versus NC State.
Mm-hmm.
You said Purdue versus LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And then who does Illinois play?
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
Which one's the least expensive of those three?
I'm going to say the least expensive is probably going to be the Maryland versus NC State in Charlotte.
That would be incorrect.
Really?
So now let's go for the most expensive ticket, and then I'll give you the answers.
Most expensive, I'm going to say, is Purdue versus LSU. That's the big matchup.
Of those three, you feel that's the most expensive of the three?
Yeah.
You are correct.
Whoop.
So the most expensive of LSU, Purdue, Mississippi State, Illinois, or Maryland and NC State, the most expensive is LSU, Purdue, the Citrus Bowl, $67 a ticket. These are all on the resale market.
Okay.
So $67 a ticket.
It's not bad.
You guessed, obviously, wrongly for the cheapest one, and that would be Mississippi State and Illinois, $43 a piece.
It was one. So I'll tell you my thought behind it.
Yeah.
My thought behind it was, I figured the two things in Florida would probably be more expensive because that's where people are going to want to travel. It's nicer weather. It's where people are going to want to be. I thought, okay, Charlotte, it's going to be a little warmer, but it's still going to be cold. And Charlotte's not a big place people like to go to a whole lot. So that's why I was like, okay, I think it'd probably be the Charlotte game. And
comparing those two, since we know that the one in Orlando is the most expensive, the other two are in NFL stadiums. So it's not like, one's an NFL stadium, the other one's not.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, Maryland, NC State, the middle one of those two. So $67 to go see Purdue, LSU.
Wow.
So that leaves us with the other three
Mhm.
that we have left over, and I'm thinking which ones did I not include? Okay, that one. Okay, no, I have to include the one. This one's going to be an easy one for the cheapest.
Okay.
Wisconsin and Oklahoma State in the guaranteed rate bowl, Chase Field, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Syracuse and Minnesota, Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx, Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
I'm making sure I didn't. Yep. The three I eliminated makes this one a mandatory one. Iowa and Kentucky in the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. Of those three, which is the cheapest?
I mean, to me, I'm going to say the cheapest is probably going to be the Wisconsin and
Oklahoma
State, yeah.
In Phoenix. That is incorrect.
Really?
Excuse me. So now, which would be the most expensive of those three?
I'm going to say, actually, initially I was going to say Minnesota versus Syracuse in the Bronx, just because it's the Bronx, it's at Yankee Stadium. I felt like that would probably be the most expensive.
Are you sticking with that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that.
So you're sticking with Minnesota and Syracuse being the most expensive of those three?
No, actually, no. I think I am going to go with Iowa versus Kentucky. It's Nashville. It's warmer. Kentucky's close. But I think Iowa versus Kentucky is going to be the most expensive.
I feel like I just talked Dalton into Nebraska, right?
Yeah, you peer pressured me a little bit because I'm like, man, you could really go either way. But I'm like, I don't see Syracuse and Minnesota fans. Like, Syracuse could travel. Minnesota, maybe. I mean, it's up north. It's going to be cold. They're going to be struggling to get people in there anyway. Yeah, I think Nissan Stadium is going to be more expensive.
So you think Iowa, Kentucky is the most expensive?
Yep.
You said Wisconsin and Oklahoma State was the least expensive. You were wrong on both occasions. Is Syracuse in Minnesota at the Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx?
I should have gone with my first guess.
That's why I said I felt like I was talking Dalton into picking Nebraska.
It was like,
although
man.
all I said was, so you're wanting to make the Pinstripe Bowl the most expensive choice. And you're like, no.
Again, it was like, man, they're in Yankee State. That's more than likely going to
Get
be
this though, and it has to be for the time of the year, I would guess. But even the mystique of going to something happening at Yankee Stadium, I would think would have a draw. Only $55.
That's still not bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. But that tells you that was the most expensive one.
Yeah.
We just the other grouping was Purdue and LSU. Granted, they're in Orlando, but there's $12.
There's a $12 difference. Yeah.
So the least expensive for a cool I could take my whole family for that $100 to the Iowa Kentucky game.
And really, that's not bad.
$18 a ticket.
Wow. Again, that kind of like I didn't picture those two, like Syracuse and Kentucky, being the two lower, because it was like, okay, it's Wisconsin versus Oklahoma State. Neither one really had a good season. Wisconsin's not going to be traveling that far. Oklahoma State, probably.
What you take into consideration there is the destination, I think, because while Nashville is awesome, warm weather for people like in Wisconsin, yeah, they're going to be happy about that. Especially, hey, you know what? Let's go out to Arizona with the family and have Christmas out there. Go see the Badgers play the Cowboys, and then have some fondue and whatnot, and then head back to Wisconsin. And with Minnesota, okay, you can go to Yankee Stadium. You can spend the holidays in New York City. Then you can go watch your Gophers play the Orange.
The Orange, the Crush.
So and then not to say, but like Iowa, they travel well, so they're going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think and Nashville is not a bad destination by any means. It's not, as to me anyways, doesn't seem like it has the pull that maybe Phoenix does for that Wisconsin. Wisconsin will travel, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But you take 6 feet of snow to, hey, it hasn't snowed here since 1960 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Minnesota, yeah, we're under 4 foot of snow, but if we can go to New York City and go to Yankee Stadium, okay. Iowa just goes, we're going bowling, holy crap, let's go.
Well, and honestly, that's why I had that one as like probably the second most expensive, or the most expensive, because I was like, okay, Iowa is a relatively close drive to Nashville. Same with Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky, that's like a half a day drive. It's in the music city. They're known for country music, good food. That's why I was like, there's no way.
But remember, I said this is the resale market too.
True.
Iowa fans, if they're playing in a destination, they're going to want to make sure they've got them. While they may have hit the aftermarket ticket, they're still, I mean, they're going to buy as cheap as they can go, but they want to make sure they've got the best tickets they can if they're going to make a big destination out of it.
Yeah.
And, it's couple states over, or at least one good state over. So like they've got to do some traveling. They want to make sure. So the resale market might be for those people that are randomly going to Nashville or whatever, or live in the area or happen to live in Ohio and are Hawkeye fans. Don't know why that would happen other than occasional relocation, but whatever, but yeah, $18.
I will say I've seen more Hawkeyes fans in my life. And I remember I was in a Big 12 group and I made this comment and I made this guy so mad. I was like, I've never seen a true Iowa State fan in person in my life. Like out of everywhere I've been, this man was so mad. He's like, we're everywhere. And I'm like, I finally saw, for the first time, I saw an Iowa State license plate, like the little license plate cover in Indianapolis for the first time, like 2 months ago. And I was like, oh my God, you guys exist.
Oh yeah, so it was just interesting. $202 to go to see the Rose Bowl. So I don't see that happening anytime soon in my future. I don't think Purdue makes it to the Rose Bowl anytime soon. I'm not going to say ever again in my lifetime, because you never know what's going to happen.
That's true. Hey,
You know, the top 4 teams in the Big Ten may be drafted into the NFL and become NFL franchises. So it may be that the Purdue's the cream of the crop of the Big Ten in 2044.
Hey, and you never know. Your Cubs on there. Nobody ever thought they'd win a World Series in their lifetime either. Sure enough, they finally did it. So
I did. I thought they would, Tony.
Hey, there's some people, they're probably like, I don't know, man. That curse is still rolling.
Nah. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's go to the fourth quarter. Okay, this is the time of the show that this is the day, being Friday, and the time of the show that we do our headlines every week. We do have a Dalton Daily. We'll finish up with him, but first off, it is the Tony Tribune.
Whoop, whoop. So I have to eat my words a little bit. About a couple weeks ago, I had mentioned that I didn't know how well Michigan was going to fare, because I thought once their offensive line goes, that Michigan was going to go. Well, Michigan made me eat my words, because they actually have taken advantage of the transfer portal. They are getting a big veteran offensive lineman from Arizona State. They are getting the young man Ladarius Henderson. He is 6'5", 310 pounds. He played 29 games, 4 years at Arizona State, was considered the leader of the Sun Devils, was ranked the 11th highest graded guard overall in the Pac-12, and played all but 12 snaps on the offense for all of Arizona State's season so far, and started all 13 games at left guard. So that's a big pickup for Michigan, and the fact of, the NFL is going to be poaching their offensive line almost all draft. I don't know. There'll probably be a couple late first round picks, I would think, out of them, and then probably a lot of second and third rounders from picking that offensive line for guys that are eligible anyway. So for them, this is just another big guy that they took advantage of being able to use the portal of, and Michigan's going to be hard to beat with that with that offensive line. It's going to be hard to be able to do a pass rush against them, and no matter who they have at running back, they're going to have big dudes to be able to hide behind. So that was kind of a shock to me that I was like, man, they're not going to be able to do that with their offensive line, and they proved me wrong.
Right.
Well, you're wrong already.
Michigan did a lot of proving to me this year. Like, and you were around for a glaring majority, if not all of me, basically saying I'm just waiting for that other shoe to drop. They're gonna hit their test, and they're gonna end up losing. I thought they'd lose at least 2, if not maybe 3 games this year, and it was just because they weren't as good as they were last year.
Yep.
Honestly, I would wager overall they're a better team this year than they were last year. That's just me. That's not to say their defense is better than that was last year.
No.
That's me saying their overall team is a better team than it was last year. That's just my thought on that. And we're going to kind of give away as to when we recorded this Friday's episode, because while you were giving your Tony Tribune, Purdue announced that Brian Brohm will coach the Boilermakers in their bowl game. That is the brother of Jeff Brohm, who left for Louisville. Brian is the OC. I'm guessing that there's probably a decent chance that Brian Brohm goes to Louisville as well. But Jeff is the one that's needed in Louisville right now, and Brian can finish up get some experience as a head coach, running a program for a couple of weeks, and then I honestly would foresee Brian going to Louisville with Jeff as well.
Now, is it bad? Can we tell Kirk, if you're watching, this is how you have the family run your offense. Okay.
Yeah,
Look
Brian
at
did a pretty
Purdue.
decent job. And maybe that's why they want to see. And honestly, maybe Purdue has told him, hey, we'll give you a tryout.
Yeah.
Because
depending on how you
ultimately,
do.
I think Brian would want to be a head coach unless he just absolutely fits in better as an OC. I doubt it, but that is what it is. So let's jump to the Sam Sentinel. I'm going to make it a pretty quick one because currently the Boilermakers are looking for a new head coach, and I've seen some lists of some potential coaches. Jim Leonard was mentioned on it. There were some. So the Syracuse coach, I forget the gentleman's name off the top of my head right at this time. He was mentioned in it. Tony, you and I even posed the thought-provoking Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
And now that some people might say, well, what in the heck? Deion Sanders was not a coach up until he took the Jackson State job. He knows his football. Drew Brees knows his football. I would say he is one of the better minds in our lifetime to play the position of quarterback. So I don't doubt that he could do X's and O's style of knowledge well. Now it's the other aspects that I don't know that he wants to, and I don't even know if that's a legit thought. But the one that I saw was Brock Spack.
Okay.
He is currently the coach at Illinois State. He has been for the last 14 years. And the name is familiar to a lot of Purdue fans because he was the defensive coordinator for the Boilermakers while Joe Tiller was in West Lafayette as the head coach. Brock Spack had one phenomenal defense while he was at Purdue. It wasn't much to say, well, Purdue's defense isn't very good. No, that's a duh. Purdue's biggest problem was their defense during my growing up. So for the fact that Purdue had a formidable defense, Ryan Kerrigan played for him.
Yeah, he was great.
Was it Chika Nakori played for him?
Yep.
I mean, there are Roosevelt Colvin played for him. There are a ton of Purdue vet or NFL vets that played under Brock Spack, and I think he was overlooked when they hired Danny Hope when Joe Tiller announced he was going to retire. It bothered him, and he took the spot at Illinois State. He's been there ever since. He's taken Illinois State to a championship game at the well, it would have been Division II level or whatever, or 1A or whatever it used to be. What is it, FCS now or whatever?
Yeah, FCS. Yeah.
But so I think it would be a good move. I like Brock Spack. I think he would be a good move for the Boilermakers. So that is the Sam Sentinel. Let us jump directly right in to the Dalton Daily.
Yeah, for the Dalton Daily this week, I want to take a look at a conversation we had earlier on where we were talking about Big Ten basketball maybe exceeding the expectations that we put in front of it because we expected a dip this year in Big Ten play. As you currently look at the AP Top 25, on the men's side, there are 5 teams ranked. Before the year, there was 1 or 2. Indiana was the highest, but not many teams were ranked at all. Now you have 5 teams ranked, but you have another 3 that are receiving votes. So more than half of the conference are at least receiving votes in the AP Top 25 poll. On the women's side, you have 5 teams ranked over there as well, and you have 2 teams receiving votes. Purdue and Nebraska on the outside looking in. On the women's side, you have Ohio State up at number 3. You have Indiana at number 4. Before you start making your way down to Michigan 14, Iowa 16, Maryland 20 on the women's side. For the men's side, you start up towards the top and you take a look at Purdue with the season that they've had at number 4. From there, it's Maryland 13, Indiana 14, Illinois 17, and Ohio State 25, while Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan State are receiving votes just on the outside looking in. My point just being that this goes to show that basketball, maybe more so than any of the other sports, can flip these kinds of narratives on its head so quickly and really surprise us, because nobody necessarily expected Purdue to jump the way they have. Nobody expected Maryland to be the second best Big Ten team as we sit here currently with the AP Top 25 poll in front of us. But that's what happens when freshmen get a chance. We get to see them play at West Lafayette, Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith. All of a sudden we say, hey, Purdue actually has something here. It's given us an opportunity now to see what they're capable of. And honestly, both on the men's and women's sides, it has been very, very impressive stuff from the Big Ten all around. Grade A, and excited to see what the full year has in front of us and how many teams will make it back to the big dance on both the men's and women's side for the rest of the year.
All right, so we're running right up on it, Tony. We're going to go a little over the hour mark, but not by a whole bunch. So you got this.
Oh, yeah. So you can catch us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok at Big Ten +4. Sam, you have to spell out plus, unfortunately. Okay. I don't know why it's such a pain in the butt, but that's what they like to do, even though they're all owned by like the same corporations. I don't know why they would just make it easier. You can also catch us on Facebook. Facebook, luckily, is a godsend. You don't have to spell it plus, or if you can spell it plus, Steelers' choice. Take your pick. You can put it, don't have to put it. Don't really care. Up to you, your choice. You can also find us on oddpodsmedia.com, as well as a bunch of other great shows and shows and podcasts and whatnot that you like. And you can catch us twice a week on the ASAP Network live.
Yes, and then if you miss our streams on ASAP, you can find us over on Spotify, our video. So for this week, from Dalton Shetler, who was on with us in spirit, and that's Tony Hollinsworth. I'm Sam Sprunger, and from us at Big Ten +4. We'll see you later.